Welcome to the Waiting List podcast. Tell us a story.
It's like many things you start building from scratch.
And then I'm like, wait, I really do like watches because
You've seen so many watches that makes you excited.
I think I really do like watches.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to see if you are a watch enthusiast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Waiting List podcast. This is Jacqueline here, joined with my co-hosts Lang Lang and Daniel. Today we welcome Lydia Winters to our podcast. You can follow her at Enjoy the Watches on Instagram. She also has a lovely flower Instagram account called Enjoy the Wonders. So, or actually follow her on her personal Instagram account called Lydia Winters. I just gave you a lot of plugs there, so you should thank me later. But anyways, Lydia, for those of you who don't know Lydia, she basically is a watch aficionado who loves sharing a lot of watch photography tips on her Instagram account. She also is the chief storyteller of, drumroll, Minecraft. So if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. We are very excited to have you on. Welcome on, Lydia.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add, you haven't really been on Instagram in the watch community for that long, but what a breath of fresh air you have been.
Oh,
you know?
thank you.
You really bring a positive vibe to a place that can be, I'm not saying all the time, can be quite toxic. So it's really nice to have you in the community. Not that I'm the chief of it or anything.
I've been ordained now.
Can I just say, and we'll get into this later, but I haven't seen many accounts sharing photography tips because you take your photography really seriously, and we'll talk about this later. You're actually a photographer, but I just thought going through your posts, because you always post the finished result first, but then if you swipe, you actually see the setup. And what many people don't realize is that it doesn't actually take much to get a professional looking photo. So it's actually very inspiring and encouraging whenever you post a new shot, and then it's always makes me curious to see how you got to that end result.
Wow, thank you. I'm glad the audience can't see the blushing through the.
No, I'm the one who's blushing.
The recording.
I'm the one who's red. Okay, so I guess we'll start off with as we always started off. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you're currently at, your job experiences, and ultimately how you got into watches, just very briefly.
Okay, just a quick life story.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
So I grew up in Florida, a native Floridian, which is very rare. It's mostly a lot of old people and snowbirds who come and visit Florida occasionally. I grew up in Florida and lived there my whole life until I actually moved to Sweden to work on Minecraft at Mojin Studios. And that was all quite a blur and change of life, going from what I would say is a very, very small life. I loved being home, and I didn't really like traveling, to suddenly moving across the world by myself, having never visited Sweden, and then traveling 40% of the year or something. So it's a total life change. And I've been working at Mojin Studios it'll be 10 years on June 24th, which is in tech time. I'm an old dinosaur lady at the age of 34. So that's really quite fun. And I'm the chief storyteller. So that means I'm kind of keeping the heart of Minecraft in Mojang Studios, talking about the impact that we have with the game and with our company, both internally for new people so that they understand what our purpose and vision is, and then also externally speaking at public, all different public events. Although I will say this year, not so many public events, but hopefully in the next few years, I'll be able to travel a lot more, because that was something I was always doing. Yeah. And then on the personal side, I just recently, 6 months ago, moved out of Stockholm city into the countryside. So I live on a dirt road now with forest around me, which has been really, really fun, with my partner, who also has a watch account, Boo Booey Watches. And Yeah.
He's also very good at taking photos.
He is. He's my photography.
Did you say
mentor.
Hublot watches?
No.
What were you laughing at? There's nothing wrong with Hublot.
Yeah, nothing. Nothing.
No, everyone likes what they like.
Yes, we respect. We respect watch choices, and we respect Instagram content. It's
Yeah, like lugs and jugs.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were gonna mention it, but I guess sure it's out there.
But I have a question straight off the. Actually, no, you haven't finished your answer yet. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'll round off with I was a photographer for a while, technically pro because people did pay me for it. And so I use that in my watch photography account that I started about 3 months ago. And it's been really amazing and kind of shocking how much it's grown. And I show the behind the scenes, like you mentioned, which we'll get to later, but I just think it's so fun. I just dove right into this incredible community. And I think at a time, especially when all of us feel quite isolated, I just have so many new friends around the world that I can't wait to visit when I'm traveling again. So that's my quick story.
Yeah. It's okay. We'll go deeper in detail because I want you to tell everyone like how you got started in Minecraft. Because I mean, to those who are listening, Lydia and I actually had an intro call, and when I listened to this story, I had to stop myself and I had to catch myself because I had so many questions. But I wanted you to tell everyone else because I think everyone would love hearing this story.
Yeah. So in 2010, I had shaved my head for breast cancer research because I had just said like, oh, I'll raise money, and if I raise this amount, I'll shave my head. I had like no following, like it was just family and friends on Twitter, and hadn't even started an Instagram yet. And I had some friends and I wanted to make videos, and just like I was making these random YouTube videos that are now kind of hidden because they're just very stupid. Just very silly videos every day. And I asked my friends like, what would be a good topic so that I could like have one thing that I'm doing? And they said, why don't you play this game called Minecraft? It's getting really popular, which is like very impressive to have seen that in 2010 when it was still relatively small. And so I was like, well, I've never played video games, so that doesn't really make sense. And they were like, well, why don't you like play as someone who doesn't play games and just do that? And so I set up my camera so that you could actually see me while I was playing and the Minecraft screen. And then I just like opened it and started recording. And everyone else at the time, mostly men, I think I was probably I was definitely one of the first women making Minecraft content, if not the first. And I wanted to make it like small episodes so that they were like little fun, 3 to 5 minute content. So I would do a lot of editing and do these like black and white vignettes to like make comments on my own playing. So it was very different style of sort of storytelling. And really quickly, my account grew super fast from a bunch of other big channels that were like, wow, this is so original and fun and like interesting to see. So I actually thought my YouTube account was hacked because I got so many messages one day, but it was because I got a ton of new subscribers. And so it just kept like growing really quickly. And I was living in South Florida at the time and going through a divorce. So like my life was totally chaotic. And the Mojin team was going to be at E3, which is this big video game convention. I mean, it's kind of like Watches and Wonders or Battle World. It's like, but probably a lot more fun, I would say. And I knew that the team would be there. So like a friend of mine gave me a like companion ticket on Southwest Airlines because I was like, I don't really have the money to do this, but I want to go out there. And I just sent a cold email to the CEO, like, can I interview you for my channel? Like, I am I have this YouTube channel, and I'm also I told Jacqueline, a very serious person. I don't know that serious people write that in emails. Regrettable. But it's like, I'm a very serious person. I used to be an elementary school teacher, which I was. And they just wrote back like right away, hey, we need someone to host our booth with Sony Ericsson for this little Xperia Play phone that like flipped up, and it was tiny. And it was the first time you could play Pocket Edition of Minecraft. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do that for, no money and a flight. Let's go. That sounds awesome. I'm already going, and I only wanted to meet them. So when we got there, I just met the team super quickly. And of course I was like, oh, I'm Minecraft Chick, because that was my channel name. And they were like, cool, we don't really know who you are. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm a bigger deal in the community than in this space, obviously. Yeah. So that, brings you down to sort of more humility.
Grounds you.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you don't really know me. And I met the CEO, and then I was, like basically hosting at the Sony Ericsson booth and like playing Minecraft and showing people they could come by, and it was on screens. And someone that I knew online had asked me, like, she came over and said hi, and she's like, oh, I want an introduction to the CEO. Can you do that? And I was like, I literally met this guy 2 hours ago, but yeah, why not? Sure. And so I introduced her, and she was wanted to apply for an artist position on the team. And I introduced them, and like right as I was walking away, the CEO, Carl, said, our company is based in Stockholm, Sweden. Would you be willing to like relocate to Sweden? And, I just turned around on a whim as a total joke and said like, oh, it's too bad I'm not an artist. I would totally move to Sweden. That just left that comment out. And he was like, we want someone to work with the community. Let's talk about this later tonight. I was like, what? Where's Sweden? And I remember being at the LA Convention Center on my like super old iPhone looking up like the map of the world, like Stockholm. Oh, that's so far north.
It's so far away, yeah.
I knew I'm American, so I knew it was generally European. It was somewhere in Europe, but very far north. And by the end of it was a 3-day conference. Basically, our former CEO kept saying like, Lydia's gonna come back to Stockholm with us, and all like the other 4 guys were like, is he being serious? And I was like, I do not know. And then we had an interview outside of the convention center, and they were like, we don't have a woman on the team. Like, you would be perfect. Like, we'll get back to Sweden and then we'll write to you. And I just thought, you get into this, like, when you're somewhere new and different, you get excited about things, and then you get back to reality, and you're like, are we going to bring this random American woman who's been wearing a pink wig and doing videos on YouTube back with us? No, I don't think so. So I was like, no, nothing. Like, this was awesome. Now I know them, but nothing's really going to happen. And 2 weeks later, the CEO wrote back to me and said like, hey, send your CV, which I was like, what is a CV? Oh, a resume. I mean, basically everything was different for this like little Florida lady. And then he asked me like, can you just write some like 2 strengths and a weakness? And I made a video back because I thought like that was a better way to express myself, and it was how I express myself like on my channel. So I made this video where I was kind of talking to camera, okay, here's what I think I could offer the company. And then for my weakness, I did that I could be a little overly sensitive, and I made it like a funny video. So I had like mascara running down my face, and I was like, someone said my hair was purple, not pink. And like, then I said like, oh, but don't worry, like I know how to sort of change this and get out these feelings like in an office full of guys. And I was like Nerf gunning the camera, like shooting, which was like me shooting a Nerf gun at my mom by the side of the pool and taking a video. It's like behind the scenes does not look as cool as the did. And he wrote back like, I sent this to the whole team. This is the best job application I've ever seen, and like you have to work for us. And I started working for them 2 weeks after I met them full time. And then I just told everyone, I'm going to move to Sweden. And they were like, what? No, you're not. Yeah, that's my plan. Because I was like, I had no plan. Like, this is my plan now. And I moved 6 months later, but I started working right away. And I've worked on almost everything across the company, so many different types of things, from running our consumer products program and doing all of the, like, working on all of our products, all of the packaging, everything, to brand partnerships. And I'm on stage at our huge event, hosting it every year and working on the content for it. So it's been absolutely life changing. So that's the quick story.
So giving people like a little bit of perspective here. Lydia was the first woman on the team. She was the 8th employee of Mojang. And tell everyone how big, people listening like must have played Minecraft, but then tell us like just how big Minecraft is now, like how many employees?
It's super big. Like, we're not a huge company, but just the amount of players we have around the world, like, to put it in perspective, when I started, I think we had just celebrated like 1 million sales.
Yeah.
And then over, like, very early on, we celebrated 5 million, and we were like, we're done, we did it, oh my gosh, we're amazing, like, we'll never have more players than this. And now we have, hundreds of millions of players around the world. It's super, super surreal. We have a team, we were like 30 when we were acquired by Microsoft like 6 or 7 years ago. So it was just, there's, some of us who've been on the team for 10 years now. So from the very beginning. And now we have, like a few hundred people in Stockholm, a few hundred people in the US, and which is still kind of small for the amount of people we have playing our game. And it's just super, super surreal, because it's like, to work on something like this that's so impactful in people's lives, that they use it every day, especially this year, to connect with their friends and family. I think it's the coolest thing I could ever work on.
Do you guys play Minecraft, Dan? Long? Have you guys played?
I've downloaded it and I tried to play it, but I couldn't get into it. And I would say I'm quite an avid, well, less more so, I guess now I'm more into watches. But yeah, certainly when I was a teenager and all the way up to, my early 30s, I was like gaming hard. Yeah,
what type of games?
Well, one of my favorite games are, my favorite games are Final Fantasy. I also love Zelda.
Nice.
And I also like Uncharted, Tomb Raider
Cool,
type
but
games.
then you love really nice, like, story-driven.
Yeah,
and Minecraft
you can tell,
isn't.
Minecraft
it's
is about like building a community and connecting, and I've heard some like stories and I've read articles just how Minecraft has helped people with mental, like, be it mental disabilities or whatnot, and depression. And I think it's just amazing. Like, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you when you were telling me the story the first time around. Like, how must it feel? Because you read about people talking about inventing something that is life-changing for others, or how impactful it is, but I haven't really met anyone who has experienced that. So, like, how must like feel for you to, like you said, you applied for this job like as a joke, right? You basically just said, oh, I'll move it to Sweden, and then you started working for this small company, and then it's transformed in the past 10 years, and you've changed in so many ways, and now it is so big now, and people must write into you all the time and telling you their life story and how Minecraft has helped them. Like, how must that feel as a company and as one of the earliest employees? Like, what is that?
I think it feels amazing and always very surreal. I am very privileged because I get to hear a lot of the stories and then retell them of how, like, families are able to connect together, how friends stay in touch. We have a charity with UN Habitat where we use Minecraft in public spaces and building and community participation called Block by Block. Like, it's used in education. I think, to me, I've said this before, but I wouldn't just work on any game. I work on Minecraft because we can make a difference with it, and because it's something that's like so much bigger than all of us. But I'm incredibly proud and like humbled to have worked on it for so long, and to have been able to shape like the brand and how people think about it. And especially early on, really pushing to make sure that it's a game that both like men and women can play, boys and girls, that it wasn't super male dominated, which happens a lot in gaming. And so I think it never ceases to surprise me, and it's why 10 years later I feel so happy to work on it still, because it's so energizing. Because even if you hear the same type of story, it's from someone else, and everyone's so happy about like, this made a difference in my family, this made a difference in my life, this made a difference in a student's life. So I'm like super star-eyed all the time, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Man, I got so many questions like,
I know.
from your like first epic thing, like, but I haven't said anything because I've just been absolutely astounded by your story. And I'll tell you, right, we have had many stories on this podcast, and that is one of the most amazing ones.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, I want to start off by asking, how important is it to have the right people around you so that you make those, well, have the courage to go out, not even they give you the courage, but maybe it's trained within you to take opportunities. Obviously, you had somebody that was, well, said, when you YouTube, you said that somebody said, why don't you do a gaming thing? And you're like, I don't do gaming, and I'm a girl, it's a bit weird. But, they said, yeah, but at least they gave you that idea, right? And then a lot of people would say, poo-poo that idea and say, no, that's dumb. Like, why are you doing that, right? So, and then, I'm really intrigued by, your parents, because you seem like a family is really important to you, where you have that freedom, total freedom. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Total freedom to fully express yourself without worry about what other people may think. So that's my first question. How important is that?
I think it's really important to have that sort of support system. I would say in my life at that time, I had, a lot of turmoil with like a separation and divorce, and that was a lot going on. But that this was like pre that, but things were a bit rocky at the time. But with my parents, they've always been like shoot for your dreams type people, and it just makes me laugh sometimes, and very thankful to think about them. Like my dad was sending me YouTube stats like every day, and it's like if we think about like 2010, like being a content creator wasn't even a thing. Like it wasn't really like a job people talked about, whereas now you could see like, wow, like YouTubers make tons of money. What, like you could do something awesome. Like at least it has some stats around it and data. But in 2010, it was just like, I'm gonna wear a pink wig and play Minecraft. And my parents are like all over, like, you're doing so great, you're getting so many subscribers. Wow. And my dad was texting me all the time, like, did you see you hit another milestone? And it was just, that was really important. And I can't overstate how important it was to have that support system, even to the point of like right before I was going to E3 to meet the Mojang team. Like I had always worn a pink wig because of shaving my head, and it was for breast cancer research. Someone gave me this pink wig. And like the night before E3, I was like, I need to dye my hair hot pink. And my mom was like, I don't know, your brand is really the wig and your hair is a different cut right now. And it's like we were having this like actually serious conversation about the branding of Minecraft Chick, and like should my hair be, and like ultimately I did dye it, and I got the job out of it, so it definitely worked out. So I was right, Mom. But it, like, I think back to that, it's like, how supportive. It's like, yeah. Well, what? Yeah. Why? And I think the same thing now. It's like, I'm taking photos of watches, and my dad's like, oh, like sending me emails like, I can't wait until you come home and take photos of my watches. And he's like sending me photos of them. And it's just, yeah, a super nice and supportive family. And also the friends that I had that introduced me to Minecraft were actually, it was Vu and his brother Lon. So they were just new friends at the time. And then Lon became my best friend, and Vu and I were working together and then started dating later. So it's like, I think if you find people that you trust, then when they kind of advise you or give you ideas, you're like, how can I take this and obviously do it in my own way, but still be able to, you can take it a lot farther because you have people around that are like, hey, that's a kind of odd thing to do, but like, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of leads on to my second question, which is, there's a lot of companies, a lot of people that go, target market, what are they thinking? They do all this analysis, right? But when you want to be truly innovative, like, it's kind of a bit, what's the word? Like, opposite, because it is unplanned. You couldn't really think about it. I mean, you really didn't know that you wearing a wig is going to get this impact, right? But if somebody sat down and thought about it, they still might not have thought about it to do it like that. So how important is it to be first as opposed to do all of that stuff? Because I'm sure like your company now must do a lot of research now, but how important is it just to be first and to be truly innovative?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can take it from the Minecraft chick side and then from sort of my watch photography account. And both have grown really quickly and sort of as soon as I jumped in. And on the Minecraft side, I was very early, like 2010. The game hadn't even been released yet. There were very few of us on YouTube. So there is this momentum part of like, if you jump into something when there's already a lot of content, obviously it's much harder to get noticed. So that that definitely helped, is like early YouTube, the growth of YouTube and the growth of Minecraft are very tied together, because both of those things were like very small in 2009, 2010. And like they kind of, both things grew up together, and a lot of the content creators and people that I was making videos with, like they have millions and millions of subscribers now. It's their full-time job. They're super great. It's always fun. I just sold out really quickly. I was like, I'll take a job. That's I'm done with all of that, the content creation, because it's so much work. And
but obviously you are drawn to it because you're
I know now I'm back.
Yeah.
I know. And I feel a lot of the parallels because so on this hand, I'm on the watch photography side, I'm joining a community that's already well established. There's amazing watch photographers. So then you see like, how do I differentiate myself? And so what my sort of philosophy has always been to just be as myself as possible. And like, if people like that, that's awesome. And it seems like they do. And if they don't, that's also okay. Because the second I start, only doing photos that, I know the photos that will get the most likes, but they're not always the most me ones. So if I sort of water it down to focus on what everyone likes, then it will actually take away what people like about the account, which is that it's different and, maybe has like a bit of freshness, which was super nice of you to say, Dan. And so I see that being able to sort of enter this community and jump in and meet so many people and grow my Instagram to almost 3,000 subscribers. Now I'm talking YouTube. 3,000 followers in a few months is like, it's really exciting and kind of shows the other side of, you can go into something a bit more well established, but you need to think of how to be yourself and be a little different. And I've kind of done that through my behind the scenes, and they're like photography tips, but also they're silly things that will just help someone get to know me, which I find really important in my own storytelling. Like, hey, this is me.
Yeah, your personality definitely shines through without a doubt, and which is, I think, one of the reasons why, like Dan said, it's very refreshing for the community. But that actually like leads into my next question, and it's something I've always also wondered. Like, as chief storyteller, how important is storytelling itself? Because within video games. It could be within the gaming industry, or it could also be within the watch community. Like, what are some examples that you've noticed, either or, say the watch industry, that left an impression on you? Because the Patek storytelling is like, oh, you look after the watch for the next generation, whereas what is the AP storytelling? Like, AP storytelling
There
is.
is so you have to master the rules to break them.
And then the Rolex storytelling is like, oh, we are
Success, victory, kind of
successful
thing.
champions in what
Yeah.
we do. Like, how important is storytelling? Why do you think people are so drawn to good storytelling?
Yeah, obviously, I think it's super important because it's something that can tell you about a brand and whether they fit you or not. So like when I look at Patek, for example, like that, the like, you don't own a watch, you're just borrowing it or whatever, that does not appeal to me as a person, because I'm someone who doesn't want to have kids. Like, no, I want to watch for only me. I'm fully selfish, but that storytelling, obviously, and that heritage and the feeling of like, I'm passing this on and it's mine, but I'm going to give it to someone else. Like, I could totally see how, if you are, you have a family and you have money and you're like, wow, this is something that my grandkids are going to cherish. Like that's a beautiful story. So for brands, I think sometimes what they're telling you is who they want to have as a customer and who they don't want to have as a customer. And I think that's actually totally fine. I mean, even with Patek, like many of the women's branded watches are, the new Aquanauts that just came out. They're beautiful, but they're covered in diamonds. So they're probably saying that I am not, or they're definitely saying I am not their target customer. And like, to me, that's fine. But it also, as a consumer, I can be like, that doesn't fit me. This brand's story is kind of saying that I'm not the right one for what they're giving.
It's very interesting, because I had always thought of it as we choose the brand. Like, I look at it advertising, I decide myself if that's for me or not. But I've never thought of it the other way around, where the brand also chooses you, because in their executive decision makings, they are also considering all these factors, like how do we attract the people that we actually want to attract. If
you think about like the storytelling of Moser, what they're trying to do is like, we're different. We're making these watches for people who are, who want something that's high-end luxury, but that's, on the cutting edge, and that, breaking barriers and live differently. You get this vibe from it, especially, even from the CEO. So it's like the storytelling goes throughout the company. It's like who works in the company, how they talk about the brand, what the marketing looks like, all of that goes out. And they're also looking for, like I said, a certain type of person to come back to them. With some brands, that later makes them change because they realize, oh, wow, okay, a totally different group of people like what we're doing. But on the consumer side, I really look for those cues in what a brand wants me to think about them. So like Tudor and Lady Gaga, I know there was lots of discussion in the community about it, but what they were ultimately trying to say is like, our brand is different and innovative and like a little outside the box, because they partnered with someone who you get that feeling from. And so to me, it's like not about any individual that's a brand ambassador, but it's about this whole package of what a brand is saying as they, go out with the things that they're doing. And for me, I think about that with myself. Most of the things I've done in my both Minecraft Chick and with my watch photography is like, my brand is me, because what I'm putting out is like, here's all of me, like, here's what it is. And that's one type of brand. And then if you're a large brand, like any of the watch brands or Minecraft, then you think about like, well, what's our story that we're trying to tell, and who do we want to come back in and be part of what we're doing. And for Minecraft, it's sort of the everyone side. Like we're not young, we're not old, we're not middle age, like we're all across the spectrum of people. And when you have a game that's really open, then you can do that. And there are some watch brands that are probably aiming that way, like maybe Seiko. It's like, there's one for everyone. Anyone can find one.
Yeah.
But then you get into like the higher end luxury brands, and they're like, this is the type of thing that we're giving you, and also the type of person we see wearing it and part of it.
Yeah, totally.
How much now is social media, like you say, critical for like even job interview, like that self-marketing? How much does that actually play into decision making? Because clearly it was a big thing on your side for getting the job at Mojang. But generally, what do you think about that?
I mean, the funny thing about it with Mojang is I don't think they had actually watched any of my videos. It was just that like it lended credibility that I was part of the community, and I kind of reached out at the perfect time. And so I think it's a bit like that when I'm thinking about my watch photography and like, oh, someday it would be really cool to partner with brands in some way. Like, yeah, that would be awesome. Then I just think about, it is really cool to be able to show certain things like, okay, here's sort of a style, like a photography style that's maybe different or that has a like unique perspective. And then that's something you're able to market. So I think it is really important. I mean, I was thinking about, just doing a cold email recently about something in watches. And I was like, oh, I should have a Squarespace so it looks a little more professional than just sending my Instagram link. But, because that does make a difference. It's like, am I just a Instagram photographer, or the second I'm taking the same exact photos and just putting them in a website? So it's not like it's a different, a whole different type of photography. It's just sometimes the presentation.
Perception. Yeah, exactly.
And so I see, I think social media is very important. And also there's so many things about what people have said online. Everything can be dug up on you. I have so many videos and posts, and I've been all over the place with Minecraft. So it's very easy to find things about me. And so I'm always pretty careful on social, because if you're a social person and that's what you're known for, then people expect certain things from you.
Yes. And that's why like you said, content creation is actually a very, very taxing job. And that's why you see a lot of YouTubers burn out, right? Because they know that there's this certain expectation that is constantly like looking and zooming into them. But then if they can't meet that, and then you have got like a whole community of people constantly watching you, that can be really stressful.
And then it's it's the double-edged sword of like, the bigger you get, the more people expect you to do the same thing. And if you're trying to partner with someone, then you're a sellout, but people want you to keep growing. So it's a very tricky spot. I think it's the same one that brands are in, but at least when it's a brand that's not you as a person, then you could say, okay, but that's how people feel about the brand. I think it's much more taxing when it's like, this is how people feel about me.
You know about the content that's on a lot of social media is very reactive, even on YouTube. It's designed when you talk about the video game creators, I remember like KSI, he was doing a lot of that with the football games, and it was like he wasn't showcasing his skills, it was more his reaction to the game, and therefore you get a lot of reactive emotional responses on social media, and there's a lot of hate also now. How do platforms actually deal with that? How do you think that they should combat online hate, or even should they be doing it? Because obviously you've got the freedom of speech thing.
Yeah, I think it's super difficult. I would say it's also like extremely difficult being a woman online, because just the types of comments are very different. I know like early on in 2010, I did a collaborative video with this super nice guy. He has a very family friendly channel, which mine also was. So it's like you think, okay, that's perfect. There's these two people. We're gonna play Minecraft together. And like that's the most like benign thing you could ever like, okay, how wholesome, how sweet. The comments on it were so bad on his page, like he pulled it down because he had never seen such bad comments, but it was because it was like a woman playing, and he hadn't experienced that type of just like, I mean, people saying terrible things because, you know, his people maybe commented on his playing or his, you know, oh, I didn't like that video, but not on like him as a person, his values, his looks, his, you know, kind of everything. So he was like, is that what it's like for you? And it's like, yeah, that is what it's like. And I saw that, you know, throughout my time on YouTube, including up to, you know, being on stage at E3, which was pretty cool after being hired there, then being on stage for the Xbox events. It's like my counterpart who was a guy, people wouldn't say anything about him online after. And for me, it was like, like, your ears are so big. Can they hear the, you know, like I think Lydia Winters can hear me from where she is because of her ears.
It's funny, isn't it? How they can pick on one thing, yeah.
Like exactly, and like
and then take it to times 100.
Yeah, just like terrible, you know, terrible things, but mainly about like my appearance, my voice, like my kind of everything about me. And even this guy who was with me, who's been in the industry for so long, he was like, wait, what? Because we're just like after the thing, oh, we did this big presentation, how cool. And I'm just scrolling through, okay, Lydia Winters looks like a second-rate Ellen DeGeneres. I was like, okay, well, I'm fine with that. You know, and just like all of these comments, and he was like, what? Are you kidding? Or like, are you just making these up right now? It's like, no, this is just like.
They can get quite creative though. They're quite funny, aren't they?
Oh,
like
yeah.
they actually take a lot of thought. Like, wow, that's actually quite smart.
Yeah, well, one was like, Lydia Winters looks like a feminist, and I was like, okay, yeah, okay, but that's fine. So, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you have to get to a point where you can laugh about it, but I also try to always like educate the guys around me that like it's just not the same. And even in the watch community where I feel like things are getting better and probably a little less toxic and there's more women, it's like, but the women that are around you get treated differently. So like, just if you keep it in mind, then hopefully you can be someone that like advocates to say, don't say that, dude, you know, because it's helpful when you have people around you that can also speak up. Because back to your original question long ago, is that, you know, with YouTube and different sites, they're obviously trying to monitor for more of like hate speech, which I think is really good, and, you know, extremely derogatory things, but like they're not monitoring for someone saying, you know, I have big ears, which I don't, but you know, okay. And so I think then it helps to have like a community that's around you that can also advocate for you. So like with my channel, it quickly became that like most of the comments were better, because if someone saw some guy write something that was like extremely perverse and terrible about me, it was mostly my own community and commenters going in and being like, dude, no, like not okay. And so I think that like helps self-moderate. And I think within the community, you can also see that in watches. It's like, hey, this just isn't okay. You know, like this meme is not okay. And I think when more people can kind of like raise their hand and be like, no, like there's joking, and then this is sexist, so like let's not do that. That can be really helpful, especially for all of the women in the community, because it gets tiring to be like, I'm a woman and I do not like that. You know, it's helpful if a bunch of the guys around could also be like, hey, I don't like that.
Yeah, I think for me, I've learned a lot actually from the two girls that I work with, you know, Long Long and Jacqueline, that
because they're amazing.
A lot of guys, yeah, they're amazing. And like, as guys, I think this is not an excuse, but sometimes you just don't think that what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I've heard them explain it, I'm like, do you know what? Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, and that's not on. And certainly I do know that the treatment that they get, you know, it's very different to a guy's account or you know. So yeah, I agree with everything you said. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so I guess like we'll wrap it up with one last question, and I guess we talked about watches, we talked about your story, but to link it together, I was wondering what's next, because for Lydia, because you've really just come in, you know, all storms blasting, and you've got such a unique presence in the community, very artistic and very creative. What's next step for you, and what do you want to get out of the community, and how do you want to help people and whatnot?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I'm definitely a bit of someone who, like, I put my all into what I'm doing, but then I kind of fly by the seat of my pants, in the sense of like I see where things take me. Like, I never would have plotted out that I get this job at Mojang and then I move to Sweden and then like all these things happen, but instead like keeping openness. I would love, like I said, to you know, Vu and I are talking about starting a YouTube channel for watches, which would be really, like, watches photography.
That's actually one of my quick fire questions I prepared. I was like,
okay, good. So, you know, because we miss, like, just, it's fun to be in front of the camera. It's fun to practice being in front of the camera, especially like this year when I haven't been able to be out and about, you know, speaking as much as I would. I would love to go down and meet some brands and maybe help host things eventually, because it's something that I know how to do, and moderating and all of that. And then on the photography side, I think I do feel that, you know, many brands, hopefully it's starting to change, but they do have still a sort of masculine sense of photography that I like to present. You know, mine isn't masculine or feminine, but I think it has a different look to it. And so I would love to like help someday like creative direct and shoot some things for brands, to just be like, hey, here's a different way that you could approach, like
a different way to storytell, a different way to take photography and all that goes into storytelling, right?
Yeah. So basically anything. I'm up for all of it. I just
But Lydia, actually, I don't know if you covered this, but how did you even get into watches? Was it a later thing, or was it?
Yeah, it was definitely a later thing. I mean, I've had watches around me, but then, and Vu got me 2 watches, and I liked them both, but I just didn't like get super attached to them. And then about like 7 years ago, he said, like, let's go pick one out for Christmas, because he was like, I'm gonna get you into this. He's like Vu gets really deep into stuff, and then he's like, okay, we're all photography, we're all watches, and so we're all bikes. And so I always end up joining at some point, because his like passion and love for it, it's just too infectious not to be part of it.
That's great.
So he got me the Cartier Tank Solo in rose gold, which I picked out, and then it was like the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I never had a watch like that. I never thought I could have a watch like that. And then I just got so used to wearing a watch, and then I bought a Rolex a month later.
You went pretty fast. You went pretty fast, because I remember you telling me, you said like you like wearing different watches to feel different things.
Yeah, which Lung also talked about on the Longa thing, which I loved, your like superhero.
Thank you.
For, you know, this talk about how you can feel different, and I just love that with watches, which is why I have a very diverse collection. There's not the red thread is that I wear them. That's it. There's like nothing else that they have in common. They're watches and I wear them.
Well, I thought it was interesting that you guys don't really share watches, right? Like that's what I thought was really interesting.
So you said like Patek doesn't like resonate with you, that story. What brand does? Like what story does? Because you said there's no thread. So what story resonates with Lydia Winters when she buys watches?
Yeah, to me right now, it hasn't been as much around the brand actually as just like the individual watch.
The product.
The product itself is, and you know, so I just got the Tudor 925 as the silver Tudor, and it's like that one to me is like it's this weird watch that's unexpected and interesting. So that then, maybe that's not Tudor as an entire brand, but that's what they want to say with this watch is like, this is out of the box. So I loved it. I'm wearing today because I wanted to like wear something that might impress the three of you, which is hard because you're like have the coolest watch collections ever. I was like, oh my god, what do I wear? So I got this. It's like from the 80s, 90s, a Vacheron Harmony. So it's this little like
Oh wow,
two-tone. I mean, it is as 80s as you get, basically.
Yeah.
But it's like I like it because it just, when I looked at it, I was like, that feels like me, even though my Pilot's chrono also feels like me, and my Rolex Datejust also feels like me. So I look at it much more in terms of like the watch itself. I do have a harder time with brands that have maybe like a dark history, like Panerai or something. Like, will I ever have one? I'm not sure. Sorry to all the Panerai lovers, but it, that type of stuff, I feel a bit more like, and with newer watches, the way the brand portrays it, if it seems like it's all for men, then I'm a bit more like, not as interested in like that new one. The old ones luckily have less baggage, but I've been very into Vacheron. I like their tagline of like, do better if you can, and you can always do better. Like there's just, I like it. It's a fun thing, but also they, sort of seemingly quietly retired the 37 millimeter overseas. So I'm like, what? So now maybe they are saying that it's not for me. I don't know. But
vintage Vacheron, there are a lot of hidden gems out there.
Yeah.
There's so many cool ones. And I have been loving, like I'm now a Chrono24 scroller, just like, and that's how I
be in your Instagram bio.
That's very true, because there are so many cool and interesting watches that just like were made for a few years and then are gone, and like that's so cool. So I have my eyes on a really like what is a really, really would be my nicest watch, and I'm like, oh, there's only 2 on Chrono24. So
for someone who's into stories so much, I obviously by the games I told you that I'm very very story orientated. So when I came into the watch world, I was screwed. It was like story after story after story, and then I'm like thinking, damn, and then there's stories on top of those stories, and it's like, oh no. So that's what really just screwed me.
I like the stories that each individual tells about their watches. Like I almost think that becomes a bit more interesting in some ways than the brand, and that's why like the Instagram
I agree
photography and stories is like you get to know like why someone bought this watch, or like, oh, I'm in love with Jacqueline's newest photo that's in film, and it's just like, like it gives you this feeling, and like you feel something when you see it, and that like it made me like, oh, I would love to have that watch, which I would, but besides the photo, obviously. But it just, I know there's a long list for Jacqueline watches.
Why do you think I'm friends with her?
And
have to put up that smell.
Oh boy, no Jacqueline bashing today, Dan. No.
It's okay.
Not gonna happen. Jacqueline is more sophisticated than all of us ever were at her age.
No, I'm so sophisticated.
I don't deny that.
No, I'm so sophisticated that like I have my mind's like blown at the drying closet that you guys all knew apparently. So, okay. So before we go into quickfire, I want to do a reverse around because Lydia, you prepared some questions for us, right?
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I totally did. I'm definitely not going to just think of them right now on the spot.
Did you not? It's okay if you didn't.
Look, she sits on the seat on the fly on the wheel kind of thing, right?
No, I can. Here's the thing: you just give me a microphone and I can talk for days. So I will fire a question at
each and every one of us.
Yes. Okay. I'll go with Dan because I liked where we were just talking about. So, what is one of the stories that has most resonated with you for a watch brand?
Well, I think, as a collector, you change how you are as you go along this journey. You develop as well, right? So at certain parts of that journey, this story would have particularly resonated with me, and then maybe it was lost. Personally, I think at the beginning, to get people into watches, I think the Reverso story is very romantic. It's an Art Deco design, puts you really into that era. You almost imagine what it could be. And do you know what it is? It's that imagination, your own imagination, that sells that brand to you. Because everybody's version in their head is going to be different. And the way and how that ties into the design of the watch, which is unbelievable. I think that's an amazing story, so much so that brand is carried by that watch by itself. So I would say that story is quite strong for me. And I just want to say back to, I was speaking to Long Long yesterday about AP and how they've taken back the distribution and going vertically, and how they're and how really, anything coming from that brand is very controlled, by them. And how Rolex use retailers around the world, and yet they're the biggest company. And we know also how much people are very much into vintage Rolex, really not having anything concrete to go on most of the time. And it's just people sharing their versions of the story of Rolex, right? That adds to that brand, right? So I think it's really key that you have more than one voice saying that story. So for me, Reverso. Yeah,
absolutely true. And on the Rolex side, just the way they have made themselves synonymous with like the promotion, the gift, that this is something that you should give. Like that branding has carried them through for so many years, where it's like, oh, it's something important, you should have a Rolex, because then
and it's consistent.
It's the first thing someone thinks of. Oh, what should I have? I should have a Rolex.
It's consistent.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, I think towards the end, maybe Patek. I think that, most people as they grow, they do have a family. Yeah. And then if you think about where Patek is situated in terms of price point, it's very much about family and generational wealth, passing it down, right? So it really targets the market that they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that's always probably always resonates with someone like me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so Lang Lang, I would love to know from you, what draws you to Lange? Because you have such a beautiful collection, and I basically drool over all of your watches, wipe off my screen after I look at your account. But I'm so interested because I mentioned earlier, but I was looking for Lange on wrists. Like I just Googled it, and then it was all your photos and people being like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, I love them. So what draws you to that brand?
I think it's just the same. So I wouldn't say it's so much the brand and the story, but it's actually just the product.
Yeah.
I just think if I was drawn to the product without even, so when my first one, the datograph, I didn't even know what it was. I just saw it and I was like, this is really nice. And I took a photo of it. And then I went back and researched on it. So I always think when your product is so good that even people that don't understand it feel intrigued to go and like research and find out, then it's probably like a really good design.
Exactly.
And then obviously after I read about it, I was like, whoa, it's actually that amazing. So I was convinced. But it's also the fact that like, I mean, they're growing in popularity, but most people just don't even recognize it. And I like that.
Yeah.
So me and Dan always say it's one of those things when you walk into a room, you make eye contact with someone else that has one and you're like, if you know kind of thing. Yeah.
You see the outsized date and then you don't really.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just.
Yeah.
A few
I think that brand
the date.
is,
I love it.
That brand's very much like connoisseur kind of watch, because it's low production, and like Long Long said, I don't need everybody to know about it. And then, you know what, that's a good thing about that personality of the person wearing it. They don't need everybody to know about it. It's not about them, it's about the watch.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's also why you get that instant
Yeah.
like attraction, and you think, oh wow, you could be the same person as me, and we could be really great friends.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
if you listen to the way Lydia collects and me, right, which is like there's no consistency in terms of like there being a collection, it just sounds like you have like split personalities.
Oh yeah.
And then
totally.
and then today you want to be like low key, and then the next day you want to be flashy, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, Long, your
Exactly.
collection is very strongly aesthetic. Like the pieces are really, there's not a piece there where I think it's not beautiful. Like aesthetically,
They're so
they're very
good, yeah.
striking. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's ever gonna be like, all right, this piece looks mediocre. Like,
Yeah,
just
trust
add
me, there
that
are.
to-
There are loads of pieces like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I definitely have split personalities with my watches, probably like 5 different personalities. But my style's like that too, so I feel like it matches. Okay,
Yeah.
that was awesome, and I definitely have a longa or 2 on the horizon.
That's great.
The long horizon, but yeah, I just
Yeah,
I loved your
Longitude has a lot of longer watches. Right? You have the longer one, you have the datograph.
so cool.
No, I don't have the longer one. So I only have 2. I only have the datograph
So
and
beautiful.
and the Langomatic Perpetual.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
yeah.
they're so gorgeous.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
Jacqueline, our lovely host for today, I wanted to know from you how you got into watch collecting, because and I'm sorry if you've already answered this before, maybe you could find a new tidbit that none of us know, but your collection is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So I'm just so curious because I'm always
And
like,
the speed is ridiculous.
yeah, exactly. So I have to know.
How did I get into it? Well, okay, so the short version of the story is basically, I've always liked them, but to me it was just like you need one. So I was very lucky that my parents gave me a really nice watch when I graduated from high school, and then I just wore that watch, throughout college. And then in my last year of college, I was looking to do something nice for my mom, to buy her a birthday present, and she had always wanted like she's not big on watches, she's more of like the jewelry person. So I wanted to, buy a really nice watch for her, and I knew that I was on a little bit of a budget. So then, and by the way, I've never spent that much money in my life on one thing. So then I was like, okay, I really need to just do it right. So then I did a lot of research, and by the time I had decided on which watch to give to her, I had caught the bug basically. So then when I gave her the watch, I was like, oh, this is really nice, but I kind of want one myself. And then that kind of thing started again. And then it never really stopped, I guess. I'm like Dan said, I'm, a really nice collector in the community told me that there are 3 stages to watch collecting. There is the gorging phase, there is the refining phase, so the filtration, and then the last phase is basically to decide what ultimately speaks with you. And then I guess I'm still at the gorging phase, I think.
Yeah, I am too.
So that's basically how I started. Yeah,
That's awesome. I love that. You're like, I got you this nice present. I'd also like one.
yeah. I remember so clearly. I gave it to her after right before Christmas break. She came to Boston to pick me up, and then we were gonna come home to Vancouver. And then I had gifted her the watch 2 months after her birthday, because she was in China, so I couldn't give it to her then. But then she was so happy when she saw it, and I've never given her anything like that, before, because it's your mom and you do gestures, but then I've never really given her like that kind of gift. So when she saw it, I think she was just like, oh my God, like this. And it actually touched me because it made me want to do more for her. Like I'm not like a gift giving person, but it felt really nice.
Yeah.
So but then when I gave it to her, I was like, oh, I kind of want that. It's not me, that watch, but then I was like, oh, it's just really nice having something on your wrist.
Yeah.
It's the research that kills
Yeah,
you.
it's so
It's
fun.
the research.
Yeah.
It's the research.
It's-
And
it's,
I
yeah.
look at everything, and then when I look at
Yeah.
everything, I just go deep into everything, and then I'm really impulsive, like I'm very emotional. I'm either really rational or I'm really emotional. But then with watches, it's the latter. And then I just get overwhelmed a little bit.
Does she wear that watch a lot? You said she wasn't
So
a watch.
now we know how easy it is to switch straps, but she doesn't know how. So she always complains to me. So her watch comes on like a blue ostrich strap, right? Which is not the easiest thing to wear for daily, wearing. So then she always complains. She's like, I can't wear this with a blue strap like every single day. I'm like, just get some straps and change it out. She's like, I don't know how. So then I was like, okay, don't worry, I'll go back and change it out for you. We forget how complicated we thought the strap changing was before you got into watches, right? Like I would always go to the watchmaker to get a strap changed out.
Yeah.
Now I just have tools and switch straps all the time. I have a strap problem. Long knows this.
Oh, I'm gonna get strap recommendations then, because I know if you're putting them on your watches, then they're nice straps.
I'll give it. Okay, shall we do the quick fire round?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Okay. So I guess the first question is must try food when you go to Sweden.
I guess it would have to be meatballs.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Sweden has meatballs.
Yeah, we go to IKEA. They're like
Yeah.
IKEA. Like everybody eats the
Hot
meatballs
dogs and ice cream.
Yeah, but Swedish meatballs are a thing and they are delicious. We call them meatballs here, not Swedish ones. But you eat them like with the mashed potatoes and a little bit of like a cucumber, like a kind of pickled cucumber and lingonberries, and you should take them all in one bite, and then you get this interesting flavor.
Like an explosion of
So,
flavors.
when the three of you visit me, I will take you for meatballs. You have a
great.
invitation to Stockholm.
There's that thing called Julmust as well. Right?
Yeah, that's like they have it for Christmas and
It's like cola.
Easter. Yeah, it's almost like a root beer-ish.
Oh, I love root beer.
Cola that is like a seasonal. Swedes love seasonal things. So like you have certain types of pastries. It's only available for like 3 weeks in February, and then
that's like Japan.
Yeah, it's super fun. I really like that feeling of like, what time of year it is, because there's these couple things that are so special. But yeah, meatballs.
Okay. Okay. So if you had to live at one other place that's not US or Sweden,
then I would probably live in Vietnam. Probably in Hanoi. I love Hanoi, and Vu is half Vietnamese, so he speaks fluent Vietnamese. So we get around very well in Vietnam, and it's just a place we've talked about. Like if we were ever taking a break from work or something, like living there 6 months. I don't know that I would live there forever, but I think spending an extended period of time. I would love to live in a country that I don't speak a common language, because Sweden is super easy to get around with English. I don't speak Swedish, so I would love a more like fully immersive country experience. I think that would be really interesting.
Vietnam is amazing. This is a really
I love it.
Place. It's really healthy country. Like the food
it's just wonderful. Yeah.
I just had pho last week. Yummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. I miss it. It was actually our last trip of 2020, which is a really good trip, was that we went to Vietnam to visit Vu's family for 2 weeks, and then we went on a work trip to Tokyo. So it's like if I had to close out pre-COVID with 2 places, I got to go to 2 of my favorite places in the world.
That was really
good. That's nice.
Your favorite camera gear to shoot with?
I am shooting with a digital Hasselblad system, so I kind of, I would say I did a treat myself to that. It's a lot of watches worth of camera gear, but I've always wanted it. I've switched around. I'm like a Goldilocks with camera gear. I always like, I've had so many different systems, but this feels like the perfect one for me, because it's a very much blend of digital and film in it, the feeling of it, because it's very slow to shoot. Like it's not a quick system. It's not a Sony. It's not a Canon. It's like click. But it's great because I don't like to edit photos for very long, and so I don't like to go through photos. So now I'm only taking like, if I'm doing a really, what I would say big shoot, it's like 20 photos. So I'm never taking a lot. So that's my go-to.
Okay. One watch that has the most sentimental value.
That's the Cartier Tank Solo that I mentioned
Mhm.
earlier, the rose gold one. It just that's the watch I wear if I'm like having a nervous day or I'm, going to the doctor of like, oh, what do I, any sort of nerves, I always put that one on because Boo gave it to me, and yeah, it makes me feel so special to wear it. I just love
Yeah.
that watch. Also, it is the most easily photographable watch. I love that. It's like
Yeah.
I could just go like hold up my hand and click, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's perfect. It looks amazing.
Yeah. I agree. Well, my next question is, would you consider starting a watch YouTube channel, which you've already answered? So
Yeah,
we'll
we
look
have
forward to that.
exactly. We've set a goal of Boo's birthday, which is June 26th, but now that's starting to get really close. But we'll see. Yeah, photography, adventure watches, or watches, photography, and adventure is the idea.
Okay. We'll look forward to that.
Perfect.
What do you think is a pro of collecting with someone that you live with?
Oh, I think the pro, I will say this is a pro and a con. You enable
Well,
each
that
other.
was my next question.
It's exactly like the best part is that you enable each other, and the worst part is that you enable each other.
I like that. Yeah, that's true. It's a double-edged sword. For
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. Because there's no one saying like, well, do you really need that? It's just
Mm.
like, do it.
Okay. And what do you think are some of the biggest stereotypes surrounding women and watches? Give me one.
Ooh,
Lugs and jugs.
I think the biggest stereotype that I think this happens in like all industries is that women aren't like real collectors. It's like, even if you have like a crazy, like a beautiful, amazing collection and you know so much and you're doing all this research, I think there's this feeling sometimes that like, oh, like a man is a real watch connoisseur. But if you're not into all of the mechanical aspects, then like, no, you're not really a good collector. And so I think that's something that just happens a lot, like in any industry. Like I said, it's like that, men, they really know what they're doing. They're a true version of this. And then a woman is like, she kind of knows. And I don't think that's true at all when I look. So I think that's a sort of harmful.
I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I actually think it's about. I'm actually trying to ask the question seriously. Oh no, okay, like, right, okay. I've lost all credibility before I've even asked the question.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
You really.
Yeah, I've hit a downer now. But what my question is as women, and you say that people might assume that girls don't know anything. Accounts like Lug and Jugs, which is a self-expression of how she wants to express watches, doesn't it, like, when people see that, think, yeah, it actually supports the fact maybe that, adds oil to the fire that, oh, girls don't know anything, or girls don't actually know what this is about.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a serious question, by the way. That wasn't to take the piss or anything.
No. I actually, the thing is, I think what I try to do, and this is especially in the past few years, is like to not like associate what I think of someone else's account and the reason why they have it. In the sense of like, for Lugs and Jugs, for example, like I can look at it and say, here's what I think she is trying to do or get out of this. But it's also like, that's only my viewpoint. And so I try to be a bit more open. I think there are guys' accounts that are, just doing whatever they want. It's just that women get judged much more for it. So I want to be on the side of being a woman who's more open and like, well, I guess like that's her choice, like her body, her choice. Mantra is like, that's her Instagram account. She's putting time into it. And that's totally fine. I feel like there's so many different types of women that it's also, you get stereotyped into one version. So like you're overly sexualized, or you are you know, you don't have enough of a sort of mechanical take on watches, and like, oh, your photos are just like pretty, or, you know, you're not. Yeah, I feel like there's enough judgment of women that I try to stay away from judging other women. And I think that hopefully men are starting to see there's many different types of women out there, not just one type. So maybe you shouldn't treat all of us the same.
I will say, you know, if you're looking for a name for your YouTube account, there's always Jugs and Lugs available. It's still available. So you can use that.
Oh, perfect. I think Vu will love that. It will be very, very gender bending.
Right.
Right. Okay. So last question actually is, what's your next watch?
Nice.
Okay. My next watch, I don't know what it is yet, but I know what it will be for. Because I have my 10th anniversary for Mojang coming up next month.
Wow.
And so I want to spend the summer kind of, so I won't have it on the day of my anniversary, but my goal is like within the summerish, early fall, I want to like buy my nicest watch that I've had. So like I said earlier, I have my
like what a few options you're looking at, or are you looking at everything?
I'm kind of looking at everything. I've gone everywhere from, like I said, like a 37 millimeter overseas to like, but I feel that I would rather go vintage because your money goes so much further for like a really nice piece. So I've definitely been going into the Longa archives and looking at the Longa archives of Chrono24, which is just me scrolling. But you know, it sounds better if I say the archives.
Yeah.
And I just think there's so many beautiful pieces, and like Long said, they're just gorgeous. They speak for themselves, and also they don't have the fanfare that they deserve, which probably means in the next few years they will get the fanfare they deserve. I think it's on the rise. So you know, so I think it's a good time to pick out something. So I've been looking at the Saxomatic, and I really want one on a gold bracelet.
Ooh.
To like just go
go all out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking for. But I think I'll definitely get some tips from the three of you when I start seriously deciding, like, what do you think of this? Because I want it to be something really special.
Yeah, it will be, and it will be linked to 10-year. And then I guess like one question that I just had is, you know, storytelling obviously very important to you, and then you obviously associate stories with your watches, but does that mean that it will be really hard for you to let something go, because you have associated so much of your life with these pieces?
Yes, I haven't sold any watches, and I do think I'm like what you said earlier, Jacqueline, I'm in the gorge stage and not really the refining. But I'm also, the one good part about watch photography is that even the watches I don't wear, I photograph. So I have time with that, time with them, and like spend time seeing them. And yeah, so some of them have more memories than others. So I think I balance that out. Sometimes I'm just buying a watch, like I don't try to retrofit a story to it. So like the new Tudor, I just wanted that. I was just like, put me on the waiting list.
Yeah.
Take my money.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I'm not going to try to figure out like what it means. Whereas like Vu totally tries to like retro memory. This is my quarantine watch. I was like, what does that even mean? It's just like, you just bought it. It's like, yeah, but I want to have a reason. And I'm more like, I wanted that. So like the Harmony, I was like, it's near my birthday. It's fine. But it's not a big birthday or a birthday that needed like a memory with it. So it's just like, I wanted to buy a watch. So that's my story for a lot of them.
Okay, great. Okay, well, that's the end of the episode. How did you feel? Thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story.
Thank you so much. The three of you are amazing. Like I said, I just love listening to the podcast and hear you all talk. And it's just always super fun and lots of laughing and great questions. So I had an amazing time. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
We laughed a lot more pre-recording.
Yeah. I'm like, we should just add that bit in. It's so funny.
We should.
We should
Okay.
next one we should do like an ad lib. Like literally, it's
Dude,
just
that was
it's so real and
good.
so I think a lot of people do
Next
love
time we should
cracking our
stop,
jokes. We're gonna
yeah.
piss a lot of people off, but
Yeah.
it'll be funny.
Or anything.
Anyone that listens to this and they want to see the picture of Dan, like when the screen was frozen, just DM like Jacqueline, me, or Lydia. We have the photo.
Yeah, we've got it saved in our archive.
That's it. There's a straight up blackmail.
Mhm.
It was the perfect timing though. And then we'll give you the photo and then we'll give you the context because the context
Yeah.
is what makes the photo so fun.
Yeah, this is probably going to do a better promotion than the straps did.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
well, thank you everyone for
Thank you, Lydia.
this
This
episode.
was such a pleasure.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you.
Yeah. And stay tuned for the next one, guys. Thank you. Peace out.
Thank you for tuning in to the Waiting List podcast. Hit the subscribe button and the next episode will come straight to your phone as soon as it's ready. Whilst I'm here, please remember to leave a nice review and follow us on Instagram at the Waiting List podcast.